What's up, guys? Welcome back to another video. About a month ago, I put out a video titled, "Is the Radium Ramjet Worth It?" Now, in that video, I think I did a pretty lousy job outlining my opinions as to why I believe that it is worth it. I believe that video is peppered with bias, and I should have did a better job outlining those biases and basically just being transparent about where my opinions actually come from. I think that we all kind of fall victim to that, even when we don't mean to have bias. And I kind of wanted to take that video and take myself as an example and criticize myself to showcase to you guys how bias pretty much is intertwined in pretty much all content creators that put out content out there in one way or another, whether we mean to or not. Now, in that video, I mentioned that several reasons as to why I thought the ramjet was worth it. Now, everybody is different. Everybody's going to have different opinions. Everybody has different things that we value and things that we deem worth it or not. Things have different value to all of us. We're all different. So I call them levers. So we all have different levers that we press to basically confirm those things that we want or confirm those opinions that we have. Now, when it comes to bias, there's all sorts of different bias. There's confirmation bias, there's misinformation, there's the misinformation effect, there's anchoring bias, there's hindsight bias. There's a ton of different biases that exist, and we kind of forget that happens sometimes just because we're human and we're caught up living and just being human. Like I said, one of the first things I mentioned when it came to the Radiant Ramjet was that I was a big fan of Radiant. Now, I don't think I did a good enough job explaining how much that matters. Now, I am in fact a big fan of Radiant and their products, which means I'm a lot more forgiving when it comes to mistakes or issues that may come about. Now, I've never had any issues with Radiant products. I've never had to deal with that. Which is one of the reasons they're so high up on my list of favorite brands. Now, when you have something like that, though, you develop, again, like I said, a bias, because I believe that Radiant as a brand is not a budget brand. I hate using the word luxury, but it's up there as a high quality brand that because of their track record, because of their QC, because of the quality of the work that they do, their engineering, looks, everything, the whole package, they commandeer a higher price. And I understand that, and I believe in that, and I'm okay with that. And I think that some people, they don't care about that. Some people don't care about prestige. Some people don't care about luxury. Some people view these things just as tools as they are, and they don't care about any of that extra stuff. To me, that has a value because I'm placing my trust in them, and every time I purchase a Radiant product, I'm always happy with what I get in return. I'm always happy with the manufacturing results that they get. I'm happy with the fit, finish, all that good stuff. So me being a big fan of Radiant is a huge bias because, like I said, I would be more forgiving. Now, another example of a bias when it comes to you being a fan of a brand is I'm a big fan of Acro. Now, I've had issues with several P2s, and till this day, right now I have a P2 in a checkout that I've had there for weeks. I'm just waiting to pull the trigger, really. And any other normal person who wasn't a fan of the Acro brand, or they weren't a big fan like I am, after the second time that they had an issue, they would have usually either crossed that brand out. I'm not going to mess with them anymore. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. But because, again, I'm a fan of Acro, I'm a little bit more lenient. Now, if we look at the P2 issue specifically, I had moisture issues both times. Now, as far as the look of the P2, as far as the weight of it, as far as dot acquisition and just using the red dot, I believe that the P2 is the best enclosed emitter out there on the market right now when it's working properly. If we didn't have any moisture issues, if I didn't have any moisture issues, to me, it is my favorite red dot essentially. It is extremely easy to find the red dot. It's a nice big window. I am a big fan of the P2. I've just had these moisture issues. Now, I mentioned that I have one in the checkout, and I'm thinking about putting one on this AR9 that I'm working on and giving it, another shot. I'm hoping that it was just a QC mishap, whatever, and that they've gotten better, and that maybe it was a bad batch or something like that. But that we only get to that point by having bias, by being a fan of the brand and giving them another chance or whatever. So when somebody's a fan of a brand, we're willing to forgive certain things. We're willing to give more chances, et cetera, or speak more highly of, et cetera, et cetera. I see it a lot across the board, whether it's budget brands like PSA, see it all over the place, or high-end brands like Staccato and so on and so forth. So huge bias in that video when it comes to the Radiant, because I'm a big fan of Radiant. Now, this is not to say that Radiant is scamming or this product is not worth what it's worth. I'm saying that I place a huge value on Radiant as a brand, and so far I've been extremely happy and satisfied with the results that I've gotten with Radiant products across the board. So that's number one. Number two, how the product looks. To me, there's bias there because like I said, some people don't care how something looks. They just want to use it as a tool. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But for me, how something looks is a big deal to me. It's a huge deal. Once we get past does it do what it needs to do, or what does it do what the manufacturer says it's going to do? Yes. Okay. We check that off. Now, a huge portion of something when I'm going to buy it is, how do I feel like this product looks, and how do I like it? Do I like how it looks? And that's a big deal to me. And with Radiant products specifically, they do a very nice job of designing very good looking products, clean lines, and they just look fantastic. I love the look. Now, and it's not just the Radiant products. Now, the gun that I'm putting the product on also matters. Now, we're all different, but for me specifically, clear here, I have highs and lows when it comes to how something looks. Now, I'm going to use my Zev here as an example. Right now, I'm on this kick of rocking my Zev just like this with the OEM barrel. And then I have the DPM system spring in here, and just rocking it just like this. I think this looks great. It looks amazing. I love the flush look. I usually don't like doing bronze anything because I used to think that it was douchey, but this is subtle. It looks good, and I'm digging this look. But in 2 weeks or in a month or whatever, I may want to go back to that 17 length look and all that. So if I also get the performance slight boost that this gives me, and it gives me the look that I'm looking for, that's just a plus. I place a high value on that. So that's another bias there. Another thing is the ability that I mentioned in the video is I didn't mention this actually when I went back and looked, is the ability to add that slight performance boost, also add that look when I want to add that look, and not have to modify my gun. I can keep the gun the way it is, and that's extremely important to me because I get guns ported and I do stuff to my guns all the time. And we're talking spending $250+ on something that's permanent. And if you have an issue, you have to spend more money to figure out that issue. And trust me, I know this because I've gone through that process with a bunch of my CZs that I've sent out and gotten stuff done to it. So to keep that in mind, to me, it is a huge advantage to be able to, pay the $400 and some that you pay for this ramjet and be able to take it off and sell the gun if I need to, or sell the ramjet on its own, because these things surprisingly keep their value, they hold their value relatively well as far as used parts go. So the fact that I can not have to modify my gun, I place a high value on that for the product itself. So huge bias there. Now, those things right there to me are small potatoes compared to the last point, which is training. Now, I've progressed more in the last 3 weeks in my journey to just get better at shooting than I have in the last year and a half. But also, there's a huge correlation between training and rounds down range because I've put more rounds down range in the last 2-3 weeks than I have previously before. So I had this aha moment where everything came together for me about 3-4 weeks ago, and I finally figured out my grip. And I know that's crazy for somebody to hear. What do you mean? Like, it took me a while to find my grip, to have a grip that is predictable, that I go to over and over and over again. And it was hard for me to find that because before I even decided to just go all in on just one platform, one gun, I used to EDC a bunch of different guns, P320 one day, or 2011 for 2 weeks, my Prodigy for 2 weeks. And I'd go back to a PO1, then I'd go to the PO7, then I'd go back to the Glock 45, then Glock 19, then my Canik MC9. Then I would be bouncing left and right. And although I would go to the range, not as much as I'm going now, but although I was going to the range, it was very hard to lock down a grip back then. So the last month, though, once I finally locked that down and really figured out what works best for me, I can go into other platforms like my CZs, my Canics, and all that, and work around the gun while I still use my grip. So it's still my grip. I'm just working around the gun that I'm using, and the training that I've had and all the experiences that I've had and everything that I've learned still applies across platforms. But I would have never gotten there if I didn't focus on just one gun and worked extremely hard to figure out what works for me and find my grip. So when I first started using the Ramjet, like I said, I hadn't really figured out my grip yet. I was moving through platforms left and right. And so if I had just shot the PO1 for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and then I go back and I shoot my Glock with the Ramjet or whatever, I do notice a recoil reduction and all that. But to me, in my mind, that just came from me not having a solid grip and a solid predictable grip and processed to shooting, and also jumping from platform to platform because some guns are just snappier than others. So, but now, after solidifying my grip, getting a lot better with my follow-up shots, and just being more predictable when it comes to shooting, when I shoot my CZs or whatever, if I'm shooting something else, I shoot a lot better now than I did back then because my grip is predictable and my training trajectory has skyrocketed. I'm not saying I'm John Wick or anything like that, but I'm just the type of person, I'm very intentional, and my TISM, it just doesn't allow me to just be half-assed or just be okay at something. I have to optimize and I have to figure out how to be the best that I can be at whatever it is that I'm doing. So huge portion of it goes right there. Another bias that I had was I'm using my Glock and my Zev experience when it comes to explaining how worth it is. Now, when it comes to Glocks and the Zev, I mean, recoil is pretty manageable. It's very manageable. Now, if we're talking my 365, then yeah, you can see it a little bit more as far as like the recoil reduction. But again, once you figure out your grip and you kind of have that aha moment like I had, and things become more predictable, like somebody who's like a Ben Stoger or all these other guys who figured all that out and they're great shooters, when they shoot with something like this Ramjet here, they may notice a slight difference, but the results that they get, the feeling that they get, is not like a wow, this is crazy. Like they'll shoot just as well with the Ramjet, without the Ramjet. It doesn't really matter. They fall back on their training, which is what I'm slowly but surely figuring out, and what I figured out. Like I said, I'm not an expert. I'm learning things as I go, and I'm sharing that with you guys, and going on the journey with you guys. So I just know that not a lot of people talk about it and mention it in their videos and in their content when they put out content. So that's another huge thing. Now, Am I saying that it's not worth it, that it's all placebo or anything like that? No. There is a reduction of recoil. There is all that good stuff. But, Radiant says it's 40%. It's not quantifiable. There's no way to measure that. So it's there, yes. But is it $400 worth? If you were just saying I'm spending the $400 just because of the recoil reduction, it's not quantifiable. To me, if I were just looking at that, I wouldn't say that it would be worth that $400. But it's not just that. It's the engineering that it took to get to this place, on how it fits without having to modify your gun, how it's illegal in all 50 states, about how the quality of the manufacturing, about Radiant's reputation, how it's not an upper echelon, but it's a higher end brand, which, like I said, commands a higher price. About how I can take it off, put it back on, again, like I said, without modifying, the look of it, all these things that I mentioned. When I add up all those things, to me, it does become worth it then. But it's a lot of bias to stack that sandwich up, to eat it and digest it and come up with that conclusion. You may see some of the things that I mentioned, they're like, oh, well, that doesn't matter to me. Okay, and that's perfectly okay. It may not be worth it to you. But it is extremely important that especially when we put out content, that we mention some of those biases, and if not all of them, so that people who are watching the videos get an idea of how we came to that conclusion. Now, some people may say the whole looks thing is crazy and all that, but to me, again, the more that I shoot, the better that I get. If I could go back and I didn't care about looks and all that other stuff that I mentioned, and being able to go to that 17 length and have a comp, not have a comp, and change the look or whatever, I'd get the DPM system first, rock out with that, do a bunch of training, and then if I still felt like I wanted to get it to see if it'll improve, get me more results, then I'd get it. But to me, at this point, it's getting very hard to notice the difference between the Radium Ramjet Plus DPM system, or the Radium Ramjet without the DPM system, or OEM barrel with the DPM system. It's the lines get blurred the better I get, and the more understanding I have, the more predictable my grip is, etc., etc., etc. And while you seen in the footage that I put over this rant that I'm having, that in the naked eye, it's hard to notice a difference. Some people may say, well, you can kind of see it. Well, to me, it's very, very hard to tell. And as of late, when I'm shooting, it's also very hard to tell, because all my shots, not all of them, but a lot of my shots are on target. I'm not attributing my improvement in shooting to the Radium Ramjet. I'm attributing it to my grip getting a lot better, more predictable, etc., etc., everything we spoke about. So, but like I said, it's not just a guns thing, it's in everything. It's look at what we do for us who have iPhones. We know that, Samsung and all these other manufacturers have better phones, but it's very hard. It would be very hard to get me to change from iPhone to Android. Very hard. I don't care how well an Android performs. There's other things that I place value on that matter to me, like the ecosystem, the fact that I have a MacBook, the fact that I have this phone, I have iPads, and et cetera, AirPods, etc. So there's a lot more things that I place value on that somebody else may not place value on, and those are biases. And it's important for us to mention that. And I did a horrible job of doing that in that video I placed on if the Radium Ramjet was worth it. Now, is it worth it? To me, it is worth it because of a myriad of reasons that we went over, but to you, it may not be worth it. So it is important to watch different people come up with your own conclusions and then make your own decisions, and not just take one person or two people's opinions on the matter. Kind of just do your research and outline what you're looking to get out of it and what you place value on, and then make a decision based on that. Because if you don't and you just make a decision based on what people are saying on the internet, you're going to be disappointed. So hope that made sense. Just kind of wanted to have that chat. I feel like we don't talk about that much, when especially in the gun community. We kind of just buy things, or we do things without explaining why we do them. We just want to showcase what we're doing to people, and I think it's important for us to have these conversations. Everything we do is going to have bias. Our job is to be open, positive, and transparent about those biases. So that's all I had for you guys today. I hope that made sense. If you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, leave them in the comment section. If you agree with me, let me know in the comment section. If you don't agree with me, please also let me know in the comment section. As always, be positive, do something nice, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Deuces.